Susan?
Great.
I wrote my speech down today because I was afraid that when I got up here I would forget it, so please bear with me. Hello, my name is Stacie Murray, and I was diagnosed with papillary carcinoma, also known as thyroid cancer, on November 11th of 2011, and had my doctor tell me to consider myself finally cancer-free and in remission in my appointment in February of 2015. Thank you. My birthday is November 2nd, so I had just turned 28 in 2011. I went out with a group of my friends and woke up the next day and my throat was extremely sore, but thought nothing of it. I continued through the day because I had big plans with my dance team to go to Extreme Trampoline and then out for pizza and cake. After my very long day, I decided to go home, watch some TV and just rest. My husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, has a daughter and she conveniently left her trick-or-treat bag next to my bed. So after I helped myself to every red Skittle and red Starburst in the bag, I was ready to finally lay down. I called my boyfriend to say goodnight, and while we were talking, I had an extreme itch on my neck, so I scratched it over and over and over, but it wasn't going away. So then finally I tilted my head back, and when I did, my hand filled with what felt like a hard ball. So I tilted my head back straight and freaked out, like rubbed my neck and it was gone, and then I slowly tilted my head back again and my hand filled again. My grandma was walking past my bedroom and heard me freaking out and encouraged me to go to the emergency room. So that's what I did. When I got to the emergency room, I explained that I had just eaten an unhealthy amount of red Skittles and red Starburst, so they should probably do a strep test because that's what I thought it was. I literally thought that that's what I was going. I've always had like a lumpy strep throat, like my glands get swollen, like I really didn't think it was anything. But they told me I had a mass on my thyroid and I needed to make an appointment with a general surgeon. I became very insistent when I heard the word mass. I wanted to know right then and there if it was cancer. And I kept telling them that I knew that they knew because I felt like they spent a lot of years in medical school, and I'm sure at one point they had a multiple choice test where they saw like a bunch of tumors on a screen and had to pick, like, was that cancer, was it not? And so then finally the doctor told me that I was right. She did have a test like that, and that in general cancer looks very messy on scans, and that mine looked like a perfect ball. And that was enough for me to go home and to finally leave the hospital, and enough to sleep through the night. But I called my aunt on the way home, and I told her that they told me to go to see a general surgeon, and she wasn't sure that that was a good idea, and I wasn't so sure either. So she prayed that I would come up with a solution for the next day, and her prayers worked. I woke up and became very proactive and called my doctor and insisted that they saw me that day, got in 2 days later for an ultrasound guided biopsy of my neck, and made a big deal there that I needed to know if it was cancer immediately. They took me seriously, because while I was there, they told me it would take 6 days to get my results, and they actually called me back in 2 with the news that it was. So on November 11th of 2011, I found out that I had cancer, and it's like everybody always says when it's 11/11 to make a wish, that it's like, oh, it's time to make a wish or whatever, you know. So I was like really excited for the day like everyone else, and then to get that news. But I wish that a doctor would call me that day. I should have wished that a doctor would call me with good news. So that'll teach you to be more patient. But anyway, while waiting for the results, I decided to start doing some internet research, which was not a good idea, because in addition to thinking I had thyroid cancer, I also thought I had monoarthritis, 7 autoimmune diseases, and the swine flu. So on Friday morning, my doctor called me, and I of course missed his call, and then he called me back, and then we finally got in touch, and he said, hey there, Stacie, you were right, you have papillary carcinoma. So I responded, what the heck is that? Because I always referred to thyroid cancer as thyroid cancer. So when he said papillary carcinoma, that sounded like a far off disease from like a different country with no medicine. And he was like, no, you have thyroid cancer. And my whole life changed. I went upstairs into my bedroom to cry. My grandma overheard me on the phone again, which after writing this speech, I think she listens to my phone conversations. And I went upstairs, after I went into my bedroom to cry, she came into my room and said, I already know what they told you by your reaction, And don't worry, you're going to beat this. Think positive, take vitamins, and eat foods with antioxidants every day. She continued to tell me that it was okay to cry and it was okay to be scared. She would too, but I have to think positive. One of the hardest parts for me was telling people. So I called my aunt like 50 times, but she wasn't by her cell phone, which was perfect because then when she finally did call back, I didn't have to tell her because she already knew by how many times I called. And when she did call me back, she told me exactly what I needed to do by getting my results, my pictures, my discs, my slides, and she called her friends to get me in with a specialist at a bigger hospital with a cancer center. I had to call my boyfriend, who is now my husband, and tell him, which was so hard because I was scared he was going to break up with me. Then the absolute worst was I had to call my parents, and I'm an only child, and so I'm like the only thing that they have to like look forward to in life. So that was really tough. Then I had to tell my close friends and coworkers, and then I had to tell my dance team and their parents, and that was also very extremely hard. But what makes it hard is just like my whole life changed when I found out, I was about to change everyone else's lives too by telling them. The majority of my family and friends have been supportive and have remained supportive, but I've lost relationships since I found out I have cancer because some people just can't deal with it. But that's just another reason to add to the list of why it's so important that we find a cure for this terrible disease. I didn't waste any time. The following Monday, I made an appointment with my surgeon. The following week, I had the surgery to remove my entire thyroid and tumor. I felt invaded. I didn't give cancer permission to be in my body, and I wanted it out. In my pathology reports, they talked about how rare looking my tumor was since it was so intact, just like that emergency room doctor. But after the removal came the treatment process. I had to drink radioactive fluid that they told me could eventually cause other types of cancer. So you could imagine my excitement for this day to come. I had to do it all in a metal freezing room. All the people in the room were in hazardous materials, suits and gloves. And I had to be isolated in my room by myself for 2 weeks after because, well, I was radioactive. And then they told me it would make me extremely sick, but I couldn't get sick because if I did throw up, they would have to measure my throw up to see how much of the radioactive stuff was in it, to see if I would have to go through the whole process again. Since I was not having that happen, I just stuck it out and did the best I could, but it was the most sick I've ever felt in my entire life. But no part of it wanted me to have to go through that process again. My husband and my boyfriend at the time and I missed Super Bowl parties with our friends to radioactive proof my room, which considered of wrapping everything in saran wrap just like that, and I didn't see anyone for 2 straight weeks. Towards the end, I couldn't take it anymore, so my mom sat at the end of the hallway, and I opened my door, but only for a few minutes. That is a moment I will remember for the rest of my life. Totally. Being diagnosed with cancer has forced me to live by the quote, "Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, it's about learning how to dance in the rain." I have a stressful job, a stressful life, just like anyone else, but I try to treat most things like non-issues because you can't take life too seriously because no one makes it out alive. I try to make out the best of every situation because we are only given this one life and life is so precious. Cancer doesn't care who you are, so it's important to do what you can to live a healthy, positive life, surrounded by positive people. Always be happy and worry about what you can't control. It is so important to participate in events like this and do your part to make cancer a non-issue also. To be here today with other cancer survivors means a lot to me. We have all survived so much more than is in my story, and just being able to label yourself as a survivor is a task. I know my first time here, I felt guilty. Why me and not the person I was standing next to who was wearing a shirt that said "still fighting"? But that's when I came to this. In my opinion, you don't have to be in remission or wearing a survivor shirt to be a survivor. In my opinion, you don't have to still be here on Earth. If you survive the phone call of hearing you have cancer, in my opinion, you've beat cancer. If you know your days are numbered, but you live your life to its fullest, you've beat this. Maybe not the way I did, but everyone has their own story. I know people who have passed away from cancer, and yes, cancer did take away their life, but it didn't take away their spirit. It didn't take away their laughter, their will to be alive, or the place they have forever in our hearts. I'd like to take a moment to thank my family and friends for their continued support, my husband for becoming my husband, when he could have left the picture completely, because I know it hasn't been an easy road, but rather one filled with obstacles, my stepdaughter for being the light of my life and always bringing so much laughter and joy to every situation, my dancers for being so perfect, and I don't know if I mentioned this, but I also have to have several scans, which everyone does, where I have to lay completely still, and even if I blink too hard, I have to start over. So I literally just lay there and picture like all of my dancers doing all of their dances, and if I didn't have that to think about, I don't know that I could do it. My sister-in-law, Dan and Sarah, for always helping me to live such a much stressful life and being the best friends I could ask for. My mom for always complicating her day for making mine easier. My aunt for scheduling her life around mine to make every doctor appointment, to make it to every one of my doctor appointments I have, and to help run things at the studio so I have less to worry about. And my grandma, who has always taught me to eat healthy like her and think positive. If you have two lions in your head, and one lion is a positive lion and one lion is a negative lion, the lion that will survive is the one that you feed. Always remember that. I'd also like to take a moment to thank Marianne for putting all of this together. When I met her, she told me she works day and night and day to put this event together. And I said, you need sleep. And she said, well, cancer doesn't sleep, so I have to keep on it. This is an amazing event that I couldn't be more thankful to be a part of, and you are truly a saint here on earth for doing all of this selfless work. The American Cancer Society has been saving, we should clap. The American Cancer Society has been saving lives for more than a century, helping save more than 400 lives a day, helping people stay well, helping people get well, and finding cures, all due to your support for the Relay for Life. I feel hopeful that doctors in this world will help find a cure for cancer. And I hope that one day, no one will ever have to hear the words, you have cancer again. And if they do, they would have the same feeling as if they got a phone call saying a strep test came back positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacie.